Can you see us okay?
I love your background. I feel bad now that I'm like in the kitchen.
Now, today's guest, Millie, manifested. We were at the launch of the new Bluey's World in Brisbane, and as we were waiting for all of the official stuff to start, Millie had a moment when she looked behind her and saw Memma ready to go on stage, and we were both like, oh my God, she's right behind us. And Millie whispered to me, Mum, do you think I could take this opportunity to ask her to go on our podcast? And we have a bit of a rule that the only problem with asking someone is the worst that's going to happen is they're going to say no, and no is fine. So at the end of the performance, we went up, we lined up, we got a photo with Emma, and Millie had the courage to ask, which then led to Memma in front of us right now.
Oh my gosh.
So for those that don't know, but I suspect everyone does, Emma Watkins, aka Memma, is one of Australia's most popular children's performers, a dancer, singer, author, a television presenter. Best known as the very first female Wiggle, and it was Millie's era. So Millie was born in 2011. So right as you were getting into the show. And then, of course, you've had your own spin-off series with Emma. Then you decided to leave the Wiggles and you created Memma, and then you created albums. You've won ARIAs. Now you've authored books. You have your own shows. And also, interestingly, been on other shows like The Masked Singer. We knew it was you.
I couldn't hide it. I couldn't.
I know. The Amazing Race, and then more recently, Teenage Boss, Next Level. So all of those reasons are so good to have you as a Move Over Mama mentor for Millie. So are you ready for me to move over? I'm moving over.
Yes, you can move over now, Mama.
So Emma, meet Millie. Again, Millie, meet Emma.
I am so excited, so happy. And I'm so happy that we were able to make this work.
I know. This is great.
Yes. So I asked this question to everybody first. I am 13. What were you like when you were my age?
Oh, it's such a good question. And I think it's actually good as an adult to think about what you would have been like at 13, because probably what we really were was very different to our memories. Yeah. But I do remember, of course, just being obsessed with dance. I've always loved dance, but I think at 13, it was really where you felt your dreams were in place. So I really wanted to be a ballerina, and I had been accepted into a school that loved ballet and that I'd been wanting to go to. And so, yeah, life at 13 was pretty fun.
Yeah. Did you like your teens? What were they like?
I see, again, I feel like in retrospect, I probably loved it. But probably when I was in the moment, I mean, there's so much going on. You have to handle friendships, school, family. I mean, mostly a lot of people talk to me about my relationship with my sister. And, you know, being able to do the Amazing Race with Hayley was just, it was amazing. It was awesome. Yeah. But I feel like we've become closer, you know, the older that we get, even though we were obviously going to the same school, you know, when I was a teenager, I don't know if we were as close then. And I think reflecting on that now, I'm just grateful for the friendship and the sisterhood that we have now.
Now, I think you get this a lot. You and your sister don't look that much alike.
No.
Are people shook when you say that you guys are sisters?
Yeah, all the time. And because Hayley, my sister, is 4 years younger than me, but she's taller, she's very glamazon. A lot of people think that she's the older sister. And so I think when I was young, in my teens, I was always upset about that. I was like, I'm the older one. But actually now that I'm older, I'm like, I'm happy about that.
Now, because you were 4 years older, were you a mother hen with her for a little while?
Always.
That's quite a gap, isn't it?
I'm just like the typical older sister, the bossier one, the one that's super independent, whereas Hayley is more emotional, you know, was with my parents for a lot longer, where I was like out and about doing all sorts of things. So we have a very stereotypical older sister, younger sister relationship.
Yeah. How did you first get into performing? Did you get into musicals or was it dance? So yeah, how did you get into it?
Definitely dance. So I grew up dancing when I was really young, and I wanted to do Irish dancing first because I'd seen it on the TV, and Riverdance was coming out to Australia for the first time, and, you know, that was like the highlight of my life. And at the time, the school actually thought and felt that I was too young. So I was about 3 when I first tried to go. And then the teacher was like, I think you should start with ballet. Yeah. And I'm so glad that she advised my mum to do that, because, it's not that often that, you would give the correct advice as opposed to like benefiting you. So
Yeah.
I am so grateful to my teacher for pushing me to do something first. And then when I was about 4.5, I joined Irish dancing and then started really just mostly as a dancer. And still I feel like that's my one love.
Yeah. I feel like 3 and 4.5 is very, very young to want to do Irish dancing.
I know,
Like-
pretty specific, eh?
Yeah, it is.
Well, what is it about it? Millie does dance and she does a lot of dance, but she doesn't like ballet, but has to do the application to be a part of the elite dance team that she's with. It's the prerequisite in most dance schools.
Mm-hmm. Millie, it's again really tricky as a teen, to understand the benefits, but to be honest, it just only helps you because you have a much better foundation and you understand your body better. And when you're older, and I call myself a senior citizens dancer, as a senior citizen, you look after yourself better knowing what ballet taught you. So you're less likely to have injuries because you're just more aware of your body. And if you don't have that training, it's just a little bit harder. And
Yeah,
so
you call yourself a senior citizen. I must be geriatric.
I definitely can't do a split jeté anymore. It just looks like a little like triangle jump. But I make sure that my shows now are accessible for all ages, so I can still participate.
What was your first job? Was it performing or was it, working in a little cafe?
I had a very, very lucky opportunity. I don't know how it happened, but there was a local community festival, not super close to where I lived, but it was called the Orange Blossom Festival. And they had a mascot suit character that was an orange called Pippa the Orange, big orange, like, as you dress up as a Baker's Delight bread man or something like that. So they came to the school to audition people to do the hosting of that show. And apparently when they saw me, they thought, no, you won't host it. You'll be the orange. So I ended up getting that job and I was only in year 10 and I was so excited because I got to leave school and then perform for other schools, primary schools, with 2 of my friends, but I was the orange and they were singing and dancing and I had a ball. But I was taken out of school. It was a program where we could go and work as performers. And I'm so grateful that the school even allowed us to do that. So, I think I was about 16 at the time.
I just love that you were an orange.
I know, and
you're orange all the time.
Only last year, not even 6 months ago, the same festival contacted us because of our connection with the Orange Blossom Festival 20-something years ago, and they asked Memma to come and perform. So we went back and performed at the festival, and I'm like, this is so weird.
Still in orange.
I was in orange. So there's pictures of me with Pippa the Orange, obviously danced by somebody else, and we were dancing together. So I'll have to send you those photos because it was a blast from the past.
Yeah. Did you have a natural talent? Was dancing in an orange like a natural talent? Or what was it?
Dancing in an orange is probably my only talent, Millie.
Oh.
I feel like dance is so much a part of me, and I feel my happiest if I get to do that. And I feel that I'm not the most technically advanced dancer. I just really love musicality. And every time I would do a ballet exam, I'd get 100% on musicality and enthusiasm and expression. And then my technical elements really started to go down.
Okay, that's kind of like me.
Yeah, I love dance and it makes me feel happy and I love dancing for people and bringing people in. But ultimately, I think it's the joy that comes from dancing that I'm good at.
Yeah. Mine's like in math. I don't enjoy math, but I will be, have a good attitude for a math test. And, that's why I'll get like an A in attitude. But then my actual intelligence, we just don't really need to talk about that. That's just left on the side. But at least I got an A in attitude. That's all that matters.
You're applying yourself, Millie. Yeah. And participation, enthusiasm, and like the conscientious award, I'd always get that because I was super excited to dance. And at the end of the day, you don't need to be an amazing dancer. Everyone can dance. And so if you can share that love with other people, that's the most important part.
Yes. Now, how did you get into Wiggles?
Well, I had danced with this amazing school for a long time, and I had all sorts of situations. But the short story is that I had an injury at school from a dance lift, and I couldn't dance for a year, which was devastating to me as a 17-year-old. And I was quickly shuffled out of dance because I was at a performing arts school. So dance was part of every day. And my teachers, thank goodness, moved me over to reading for kindergartens and being in the costume department. So I did that instead. And then I taught myself how to edit film. So I was constantly being distracted by the teachers because they knew how much it meant to me. And through that, I taught myself how to edit and got a scholarship to Sydney Film School. So I ended up going to film school and doing uni and just dancing for work if I could find it. And then I realized all my friends went to do their full-time dance course. So then after film school, I went and did full-time dance. Then I went to university because I realized that I needed to have lots of different skills. You know, you can't necessarily work as a dancer straight away. And so I was trying to juggle auditions and go to university for film at the same time. And I just happened to get an audition for the Wiggles. My first audition for the Wiggles, I didn't get through. And it was only maybe a year later I auditioned again, and it was for a very specific role to be a ballet dancing fairy, and I got it.
Can I talk about the injury? What actually happened in the injury? What was the injury and what was the recovery like for you?
So I was dropped in a dance lift. And, you know, like all partner dancing, you know, you have to be so in sync. And my best friend and I, we were, and we still are, we're like the greatest mates. But our timing wasn't together at 16 years old. And I fell and landed on my bum, essentially. And I basically just like came down at quite a speed because I was in the air. So, you know, like, it's very tricky to describe audio-wise, but my partner, he was standing in fourth with his front leg bent like a lunge. And the flyer, the girl, runs up and then does a handstand over the top and then spins over and you're in a crucifix and you catch your legs in a split.
Dirty dancing.
But I know, like crazy. And, you know, when we're young. And then I went to go on the dismount and I didn't have my legs down and he went too quickly and then I just came straight down. So since then, I haven't been able to do an arabesque with my right leg behind me because my vertebrae are in a wedge. So I've got between T7 and T9 wedge compressions. And to be honest, it changed the trajectory of my life because then I appreciated so many other styles of dance where I didn't need to have my leg up at the back. And I didn't end up being a ballet dancer, but I used all my ballet training specifically when I was with the Wiggles because I was, you know, sharing that love of ballet with preschoolers.
Did you fall in front of a big audience of people?
Yeah, it was a competition. So it was a Shakespeare festival and we were dancing Macbeth. And people thought that it was part of the show because it was such a dramatic performance. And people were like, that was amazing. And we won. And then when I was wheeled on at the end on a wheelie chair because I couldn't stand up, they were like, what's happened? I'm like, I was dropped. Didn't you see that? And they're like, oh, we thought that was part of the act. And so then since then, I couldn't dance for the whole year. So it was so life-changing for me at that time because I was like, how can I be a person without dance?
Isn't Macbeth to be or not to be?
Exactly. It was
And
just
to be or not to be a ballet dancer, and then it led you to the Wiggles. So you have to look at those sliding doors moments, don't you, in the positive way you did.
Yes.
Yeah, and, you know, when people love something and they're passionate about it, it'll always come back, but it does teach you to look at other options and you do need to be flexible, and I had to learn that quite young.
Yeah. What was being on the Wiggles like? What was like a normal day or a normal week look like for you?
Well, certainly the day was never normal. It was always crazy and fun and adventurous. And we had lots of different types of days. So some days would be filming, you know, in our studio in Sydney, or we were on tour. And on tour at the time, we were doing 4 shows a day, 6 days a week. Like it was very, very busy. And then after every show day, we would drive to the next spot. So you'd never really be in the town longer than a day or two. And so I did that for 12 years in the end.
I remember watching the Celine Dion doco that's on Netflix, and there's a little moment where she talks about how she's seen the world but hasn't seen the world.
Yeah.
And it really struck me that fame looks glamorous, but realistically, she was from green room to green room, stage to stage, never being able to experience the city she was in, because obviously there's the fame and she would get mobbed, but also how much they push you on tours to get to the next place. Do you resonate with that? Is that what that felt like for you? And now do you want to see the world via Amazing Race and things like that?
I mean, I'm certainly not in the Celine Dion category of fandom, but I can appreciate that for us, it was certainly about logistics, and it still is because, you know, for example, if you're touring in Australia, there's a lot of ground to cover. So if we were performing in Cairns and like with Emma Memma, you'd perform 2 or 3 shows, then you've got to drive 4 hours to Townsville. And so every single day you've got to fit in shows and driving. And so by the time you start your day, you know, at 6 a.m. and you're performing at 10, 12, 2 or 4, usually if we had the long travel, we wouldn't. So 2, then you drive another 4 hours. And by that time it's 7 p.m. You're trying to find dinner in the next town, and then you're asleep and you do it all again. And so mostly it's just because the logistics of touring is so tricky. And so, yeah, you are inside performing a children's show in the daytime, so you don't see the town, and then you travel at night and everything's dark. So I've traveled a lot of Australia, but I haven't seen it in the daylight.
You're Celine Dion.
Celine Dion of Australia.
The Australian tour of the nation in the dark. So only now with Emma Memma, you know, we have a little bit more flexibility and time to be able to see the country and to visit preschools and early learning centres. And I've seen more of Australia actually in the last 3 years than I have in the last 15.
When you started getting more fame with the Wiggles and, you know, your the yellow Emma Wiggle, what was it like when people saw you in, like, specifically children saw you in public, but you weren't wearing your yellow costume? What was that like? Did people actually recognize you?
I mean, and it's all the time now. It mostly isn't the children. It's mostly parents, because the children, they are used to seeing you in your costume, and it's a really weird situation where it's not like a, you know, your regular actor or presenter where they're always in different clothes. But because children relate you to a color or a costume or a theme or a vibe, they're looking for that all the time. And so parents will notice me in the shops and they're like, oh, look, it's Emma. And then the children, if they're about 4 or 5, they'll recognize my hair. But apart from that, if they're younger, then they start to look around like, where is she? Where's the orange outfit? Why doesn't she look like a pumpkin? And so it's a lot harder for them to put that together. But for parents and grandparents, there's a lot of excitement, and I hope that they have had some relief in their home where we've been able to give them a moment of rest. Maybe.
Yes. Do you just wear orange all the time now? Just so that, you know, if the kids do see you, they know that the orange is you?
Or is it the total opposite? Full head to toe black?
Most of my outfits are, like, most of my own clothes are pink or peach or apricot. So yes, it just happens, but it's mostly because I love these colors. But again, if it's not the costume, they don't have that sense of recognition.
Do you mind that people come up to you?
No.
And do you have, if you're trying to buy apples at the grocery store, how do you armor yourself, I guess, from being approached, getting a photo, maybe on a day you don't feel like it? Or is it just something you accepted and it's a part of the job?
It's a beautiful thing to have so many people, you know, tell you their stories or their connection of watching you. And so I think over time, I've really learned to take a moment and listen to their feedback, because I think actually I've realized that that's the easiest and most direct way to change what I'm doing, or do more of that or do less of that, and make sure that I'm constantly taking in people's feedback and experiences of the show. But really, performing for children, people are genuinely and generally very happy to meet you. And I think that's why we're in such a lovely position. Like, we're not in Parliament or, you know, somewhere where someone might scream at you. That just doesn't happen. And so I think, I feel very lucky, but it's a feedback exercise. It's really useful.
Good way to look at it.
Yeah. So funnily enough, on my 2025 vision board, I want to learn a language. The language is sign language. You've made sign language such a cool thing, a language. How was it hard learning sign language? And is it something that everybody should learn? Like it should be in the school curriculum to learn sign language instead of German?
Well, I have to admit my co-performer Elvin Lamb is probably one of the most amazing signers in Australia. He uses sign language as his primary language. And when you see him sign, you're just your breath is taken away because he's so expressive and he uses that language more than he uses, that he's comprehending English or Mandarin. He's originally from Hong Kong and is profoundly deaf. But I had deaf friends when I was growing up in primary school, so when I was about 7, and I loved the language then and I was so interested. And I started learning little bits, but I didn't formally learn until the pandemic because the course had always been face-to-face, and I tried to fit in a few community courses after school, but I wasn't able to finish my degree at the time because I was always touring. So when they changed the course, then I decided that I would study that alongside my PhD, and I became a sign language interpreter last year. Officially, but it is very, very tricky for me to work as an interpreter professionally because I am a distraction for the deaf person, because mostly then when I'm with a deaf person, unfortunately, the other person is asking me about my career, and that's not the role of an interpreter. So I'm still trying to find the best ways that I can do that. But for me, I wanted to be able to learn so that I could express myself with my friends, my deaf friends, and even our team. So currently our Memma team is made up of deaf colleagues and hearing colleagues. And I'm the only person that can switch into both languages the quickest. But now I see all of our hearing colleagues picking up basic sign language. And yes, we recognize that with Memma, it might be people's first exposure to sign language. But yes, personally, I wish that sign language was more supported. But there's lots to talk about. You can't start me on this topic because I'll talk forever. But I think it should be in the curriculum, but it needs to be supported by deaf teachers. So that's the way up. So yes, we would like it, but we need to support our deaf community to teach it. And there's not enough support there for them currently for them to share all of their knowledge. But we have so many amazing teachers, The things I know, is this clapping? Yes, hands in the air and shaking your hands. That's actually applause in lots of different sign languages. So that's a really good one. That's not just Australia specific.
Yeah. And I know the wombat.
Wombat, for Wombat Wednesday.
Is that something you've learned from Emma?
Yes, I have.
Millie's yes, that's right.
Yes,
That's a great one. Wombat.
Yes. Now I really want to learn sign language.
Yeah,
good.
I
think
You can.
I can. What made you want to make the decision of leaving the Wiggles?
Look, I think, at the time we were in the pandemic, and most of my life before that, so for 12 years, we toured and we performed everywhere, and it all came to a halt. So the whole business had to change the way that they were going to approach everything. And at the time, I was already studying my PhD in learning different ways to creatively integrate sign language for children's media. And so because I was spending way more time researching than performing, I thought, maybe I need to delve into this while I can. And my supervisor at the time and I realized that the research that I was uncovering was really important. And so I had to make a big call at that time, but I couldn't see any performing coming up in the future at that point, even though I knew obviously the world, might come back. But, it was a really unknown time for everyone. So I thought if I have a chance to be able to do my research now, I think it's the right time. And so, I did a big leap and into my PhD, which I finished last year. And that has informed all of the things that we currently do, different projects, and of course, Memma.
It must have been a big conversation to have with everybody from management to Wiggles that this is what you wanted to do. Did you have people pushing back and saying, this is crazy, you're the most famous Wiggle, this is going to upset a lot of kids and all that kind of stuff? What was that thought process like? Because I'm sure it was not as easy as you've made it out to be here, COVID. Like, I'm sure there was a lot to unpack.
I think there was a lot, going on for everybody to try and figure out, what businesses were going to survive too. Not that I guess my brain was more trying to think about how am I going to achieve this research that I feel really strongly about. And because I'd been doing it in parallel to performing with the Wiggles for a while, everyone knew that I was studying in this area. So I'm very grateful for people, having that much faith in me to continue that research. And I think it's always those things, you only realize it when it all comes together. And I think it's only coming together for me now, as in I can only now put some of that research into practice. And, for what we've, I guess, achieved over the last 3 years, in my life post the Wiggles, it's quite enormous. Even though people obviously won't see everything because not everything's public, I think what we've been able to show Australia and the world with accessible theatre for children in our small MMM world it's enormous.
Yes. What is behind the scenes of Memma, and what was behind the scenes for Wiggles like? Is it, always trying to create new songs, like thinking the next place where you can go like on tour? What's it like behind the scenes that people don't often see?
Yeah, it's all that. And you're constantly thinking about the next thing. I mean, the great thing about tour is that you get that direct feedback, like we were talking about with people talking to me in the shops. You get that straight away on the tour all the time. And the Memma show it's a very relaxed environment. So, children can get up, they can do whatever they need to. The lights are on, people can play, they can eat, and parents talk to me during the show. And same with deaf members that come to the show. They're signing to Elvin all through the show, having their own conversations. So, it's amazing to use that information to then think about what we would do after. And so the tour gives us great ideas about, yes, what area haven't we toured in? Where do we get the most fan mail from? Who's watching our YouTube channel and where? What country do we think that we can adapt our Memma show, which is so heavily embedded in AUSLAN, Australian Sign Language? Where can we take that? Will American Sign Language be helpful for us? What other deaf talent is there in the world that we should connect with? And yeah, those conversations are like daily, like every hour, just constantly trying to think, how can we bring more joy to our audience?
Yeah.
Can we talk about your audience? When we talk to celebrities that are performing and, big concerts and all that kind of stuff, and we ask, what's a funny thing that you see when you're looking down into the audience? You've got an entirely different audience. Like, you're probably going to see someone wet their pants.
Yeah.
What's the fun stuff you've looked out onto or that kids have done whilst you're performing?
Oh, I mean, it is endless. And I think with a kids audience, it's just so funny because you see such an array of children responding in different ways. Either you've got the people that are like just full-blown dancing, enthusiasm, excitement. Some children are sitting in their seats, they're completely enjoying it, but they're just taking it in. Like, they'd prefer to watch it first and then talk about it with their parents later on. But we have a moment in our show where Elvin and I walk around the audience to try and see as many people as possible. And, it's actually the moment of the show where we get the most feedback. People either love it or people are either upset that we couldn't say hi to their child individually. And so it's that balance. We recognize that connection with people is by far the most important thing in our show, but we do receive feedback both ways because children are like, they think that we're theirs. They want you to be like at their seat. And we're like, we couldn't get into row L, seat 35. We try and go as many places as possible. But that certainly is the fun part, where you see children either just not know how to respond to you, or they give you gifts like craft that they've been making at home, or pasta necklaces, which is what we receive the most. or paper butterfly hair clips that they've made at home. But like that's the nicest part of the show.
Yeah.
But it is also, it's like that sad goodbye. You know, when parents go to visit, children visit their grandparents and they have to leave. It's that. It's tricky. We've tried to weigh it up, but it does give more positive than sadness.
All right, so here's an interesting
we
question. What do you do with all the crafts? What happens? Have you got a room with it all? Tell everyone that you keep every single thing.
I try and keep most of it. I have tubs full of it. We have storage full of it. Obviously, we can't take it all the time. In the places where we tour, where we're driving, we put it in the van, and then I lay it out over my front lawn and take photos and videos. And again, that they're always the posts where we receive the most amount of comments, because people are like, I can see my picture where I drew the waffles of wombat going into the burrow. And yeah, you'll notice on our social media, we take lots of photos and videos of our fan mail, whether it's posted to us. Like I have some crackers. Like I know this is a podcast, but I know that you won't be able to share this.
No, go get it.
I know this is like the stuff that's just arrived in the mail. Like you just don't get cuter than this, right? So this is a waffles of wombat. I know, and we get this sent to us daily. This one's got like sequins on it. This is Emma and the girl that's drawn that for us, but she's also drawn BB Butterfly, who arguably looks like an octopus, but I love it, and Waffles of Wombat, who also looks like a dog. But and that's the butterfly bus there with the smiley face, and like that is how do you part with that? Like this has been sitting
you're
here.
a better person than me, because my kids bring home stuff like that, and I'll like leave it up for a day, and then it's bin day.
It's very tricky. It's very tricky. And, you know, we've talked about lots of different ways that we can share this with people. You know, of course, there's amazing organizations. They take pictures of everything and make it into a book. And, you know, but, you know, we will try and do some more things with them, but mostly we put them out at home and then take photos and videos to keep.
Well, we do a lot of visualizing and manifesting with our podcast with different guests that have come in. And you've just mentioned a book. I actually think that's a great idea, but to be able to perhaps use the pictures in relation to the story. So you start writing a story about a wombat, there's all the wombat pictures.
I know,
and then
don't
a
worry,
butterfly comes into the story and it's their pictures. And you don't have to pay for an illustrator.
I mean, I feel like, you know, it's just such a different way that the audience connects with our brand, and because it's preschoolers, like they want to be drawing their experience. Like this particular drawing is of that child. Like that child has drawn themselves in the Memma world, and that's really how they see themselves as part of that. And you know, you don't get that all the time.
And like they've used their best gems, their best colors, their neatest
best
like
stickers,
writing, their drawing. It's just
too much. It's beautiful.
Yes. My mum has endometriosis. I'm quite scared that I might get it as well. And it's quite like,
we had to have a lot of IVF to have our two children. There's a big age gap. Millie's 13. My son is 6. So I really resonated with your story when you were brave enough to share it and used you as someone to say, look, Millie, here's the people that have what mum has and goes through what mum goes through.
Yeah, what's it like for you?
I mean, Millie, you're in such an amazing position where, yes, you have, you know, you may have those concerns, but the greatest thing about knowing that mum had it means that you're so better placed to be able to manage it if it happens to you. And I think for so many children now, if their parents do know that they have it, then at least you can prepare for it. Whereas, you know, for your mum and I don't know, but I had no pre-warning. I didn't even know what it was. So being able to have that knowledge beforehand is only going to be helpful for you in the future.
I know that I won't be alone.
See, my story is a little different to yours, because I know you went through a lot of pain and you were managing a lot of pain. For me, I went in for something else and had to have some surgery. And when they shut me back up, they said, you're riddled with endo. And I was like, well, what is it? And they handed me a pamphlet about it and sent me home. And that was it.
I mean, yes, you're right. And it just is so different for every person.
That would have been hard managing that pain, and you've got a smile on stage.
I feel like, again, probably because I'm a dancer, it's a trait, as in, you're like, smile, sparkle and shine, everything's fine. And, my pain threshold is super high. So I just didn't know that it was so detrimental what was happening, and that I wasn't, because I didn't know what it was, I wasn't able to listen to my body properly and go, oh, okay, I need to make a change. So, while you can't get rid of endo completely, I definitely manage it better now than I did before, because I now know what it is and I know when it's going to happen. But yeah, the pain is, for me, that's the worst part for me.
Yeah.
Pain.
For me, not a lot of pain, but infertility,
Yeah.
So it was that and
Different
unexplained.
struggle.
Yeah, unexplained for a bit, and then, that's what it is. And, then it was a different tact to have the kids. It became more urgent to have the kids when we knew what it was. It was, we need
Gotta
support.
be now. Yeah,
Yeah.
Mm.
Now, you wear the cutest costumes ever. They are amazing, and it's. I think you need to make them in all sizes.
I agree. You need to talk to VW. They won't allow me, but yes.
Yeah. How did you come up with them?
Well, actually, the Memma character was so fun because we got to start from scratch and really try and implement, what we really love, which for me is dancing. So it had to be twirly, like hands down. What's the twirliest skirt that we can find and make and draw? And so we actually worked with the beautiful Brisbane illustrator, Kerry Hess, to draw the Memma character at the start. And then that kind of at the same time we were working with a Melbourne costume designer who used to work for the opera and the ballet. His name's David Hansen, and he created the skirt. And here's both of them, attention to detail in their own way. Kerry would be like, is it floaty enough? Does the shirt look like it has a nice material? Whereas David would be like, this material is not heavy enough. It's not giving a twirl. They just love their craft so much. And so between the two of them, not that they have never met, but in their own way designed, Memma from talking with us. And we wanted to make sure that Emma and Elvin's costume had enough contrast that when Elvin and I are signing in front of it, it's plain enough and dark enough against our skin tones so that sign language could be easier to see. So yeah, all of that research kind of went into making the costume. So it kind of is the best of both worlds. It's practical, even though people are like, why would you wear a dress? But for me, it's so practical because I can dance everywhere, and it's fun for preschoolers, and it's bright enough, but it also gives enough contrast against my skin tone.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I love that.
Yeah, I didn't realize there was so much thought put into costuming, to be honest.
And when you meet these two, like David, particularly the costume designer, he's always thinking so how does that work with a quick change? What's the best press stud? What's the best thread? It's just great.
Yeah. How did you come up with the name Memma?
Well, a lot of children over the 15 years would get confused with the consonants between mama and Emma. So a lot of children would say mem, 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 mem. And my nickname with my friends was Memma. So we were like, maybe it should just be Memma, because most children will say em, mem, 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 mem. So trying to make sure that it was something that was approachable for a 2-year-old.
Memma.
That's great.
Memma.
I love with everything that you talk about, there's so much consideration for kids. So your name, Memma, has come from what kids were already calling you in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you bring it to their exposure and their experience, it's only going to be easier for them to indicate that they're talking about you. So, we don't want to make it too difficult, but we want it to be part of their intuition or what they're already doing.
Yeah, and how'd you come up with the orange color?
Again, I love peach, I love pink.
Yeah.
But, with my skin tone being fairly pale and pink, it's not that useful to sign against. Whereas red's really hard to read as well. And so orange was a bright, happy color, very joyous color. I love peach colors. And so that once we got the right tone, it was the best one against my hands.
Yeah.
Wow. Once again, so much thought.
Yes. I think
so much. No one understands, but so much.
No. And are these the sort of questions you get asked that we're asking you now?
On the surface, it's we some questions they mostly sit around here, but being able to talk to you like this means that we can do like that next layer, which is lovely. And a lot of people don't appreciate what goes on with so many different artists, I think. And so when you finally get to talk about it, and, at least this is not my first year of performing, 15 years, you're able to think about these things a lot. And so, yes, when you get the opportunity to do it yourself from the start, you're like, oh, if I had my time, this is what I would do.
I think that your Inside Out anxiety costume was so cool. I loved it.
My sister and I, we went to the premiere of Inside Out 2. And of course I had to dress as anxiety because it's orange. Not that I'm not necessarily a very anxious person, but I can be performing. I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope we do an okay job. But yes, my sister, who's much more into fashion than me, helped me pick out a very beautiful, sparkly orange situation.
That was so cool.
The jacket was made by a Brisbane costume designer, and she's amazing, Rachel Burke, and she made the sparkly orange jacket.
That's so cool.
You must get invited to a lot of cool stuff. Like, what are the big perks about what you do, and what's the cool stuff you've been able to go to and be a part of that you really love and cherish?
I think, because we've always been touring, I haven't been able to do many things. We get invited to lots of things, but we're not around or in a different state at the time. And so now, because our schedule is so different and so flexible, I think, the best part has been partnering with Disney over the last 2 years. And my sister and I, I guess growing up always watching different films and loving the characters, being able to do some things now with Disney it is like childhood dreams come true. So I do have to admit that that's been a really beautiful relationship that we have with Disney Australia.
Yes. Now, how does this sound? I feel like your Memma shoes should be sparkly.
I wanted them to be. It's just a really hard upkeep, Millie.
Yeah.
I had to go for something super practical.
Yeah.
However, for the arias, not last year but the year before, I dressed as Memma and I had sparkly pink shoes.
Okay.
So
good.
sometimes
that makes up everything. It's like,
sometimes I wear sparkles. As in, I want to wear sparkles, but most of the time, the reality is I'm either in a preschool, I'm in bad weather, or I'm at a zoo. They'll either be pooed on, I step in poo, vomit, and it just, I didn't want to get the sparkles. There's no point. I needed to get a washable, it's practical, washable shoe that I could put in the washing machine if needed.
Yeah, okay.
Now, is there any other feedback you want to give Memma what you've got to Millie?
I know. What was that? What was that, Millie?
Any more feedback?
No, it's okay. It's okay.
I'm obsessed with feedback. You have to tell me. I hear you, the sparkles. If I could, I certainly would.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you've already wanted the arias, so
I have wanted the arias. I need to find the right. I haven't actually found the right orange sparkly shoe. I've got one, but they're not the right orange. They don't match the Memma costume because it's such a specific orange because of the signing. Haven't found the right sparkle shoe.
How is your Big W launch for Memma? I think that's so cool.
Another amazing, partnership. Big W has been a huge supporter of me personally over many, many years, but I think for them to be so keen to bring Memma to Australia and to children around the country is just amazing. But I mostly actually work with my sister for our merchandise and apparel, because my sister's experiences has been in retail for over a decade, and she used to work for Camilla and lots of other different fashion houses. And so when we were ready, she was like, I think actually I could lend my experience. I'm like, great.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell Emma, so Millie's on Big W billboards as well?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, so she did, one of the sponsors of our podcast is Pavement, and Pavement is a teen brand, and Millie was the face of one of the campaigns. And
that's awesome.
When all the posters popped up in Big W, we lost our minds. We had to go in, we had to do photos with it, all that kind of stuff. Do you do that too? Do you still?
Yeah. I just see how my face is going.
Yeah.
You want a mustache on it.
You need to see on my Instagram, we took my parents into Big W. to see the Emma and Disney collaboration that we did, which was a mums and bubs collection last year. And my parents were my mum still, she will always write, she's like, well, in Big W at Mittagong and I saw your dress. And like, it just, you know that you're connecting with so many people, and that's why we love partnering with them.
Yeah.
What has been your favorite, I guess, encounter with a fan or a child where you've just been shocked and they've just been shocked to see you, and it's just been such a lovely, heartfelt moment? Yeah.
So many. We visited a girl for Make-A-Wish Foundation in Shoalhaven, actually, towards Wollongong in southern Sydney, which wasn't too far away from where we are in the Southern Highlands. And we were meeting her one-on-one because she was immunocompromised, and we knew she loved Memma. We hadn't met her before. And her ability is varied. She doesn't have full physical control of all of her different situations, but she is obsessed with Memma music and dressing up. And we met her, and she's nonverbal, but she uses some speech and sign. And after about 20 minutes, she kind of warmed up to the situation. She mostly just couldn't believe I was there in real life. And we had BB Butterfly, our friend, with us as well, that was just too much. Like, she just couldn't believe that BB and I were not on the screen. And then after about 20 minutes, she started like moving her leg like in a rounding shape, like on the floor. And her mum instantly was like, oh, she is obsessed with the song Rainbow Round. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then as soon as I sung Rainbow Round, it was like the first time that she like properly danced. And like, with all of her like physical situation, like it was just amazing to see her come to life because she just loved the song, and that I was there, and then we could do Rainbow Round, and that was just like a beautiful moment. And since then, she's actually been able to come and see like 3 of our shows since. And
that's so amazing.
When we see her in the audience, we're like, just get so excited to see her.
I've also seen some videos where like kids come up to you and just like won't let go because they're so excited to see you. I think that's also so sweet.
So beautiful. We're very, very lucky.
We do this thing in our house, and it's I saw it online on YouTube or Instagram or something, and it was with children. Just try it. Don't be the first to release from a hug.
Yes.
Let them release from the hug, and psychologically what it does for them. So then we started doing it in our house. And in the beginning, it was a bit of a novelty because the kids were like, Mum's not going to let go. So they would hug and hug. But it really, really helped them.
It does.
Both my kids got ADHD, so it's understanding why they might be hugging sometimes. It might be regulation and all that kind of stuff. But it's just the beauty of it. So how do you manage that when they don't want to let go? How do you have you done that? Let them let go first? Or do
always,
you have to,
Yeah, and you see it a lot with the philosophy of, Disney live entertainment have really, coined that as, a big part of their belief as well.
It's called the Disney hug, isn't it?
The Disney hug. And it's a great thing to remember. It's just tricky when you've got a meet and greet of 200 or more people. And then you're like, how do you stop it? But that's when when you've got that relationship with the parent, and the parent can help you, and now Memma's got, it's the sharing, like now Memma's got to say hi to somebody else. And so, that's why parents and carers are so useful.
I'm just imagining you with like 10 children all hugging in like an Memma human centipede. Everyone
and
just all hugging.
It's every time. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah. What do you do in your rest time, like to reset, to get back into your Memma base,
or just your Emma Watkins? Like, I guess that's the question. Your career is like a lot of people's hobbies. So then, so then what do you do as a hobby, or has your career, is your hobby and everything all in together?
I guess, probably a bit of both. And I love being home, and I love being with my animals, and I have dogs and goats and horses, and to be home and to just sit on the grass outside is like, is the highlight. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk goats.
I know.
How many goats do you have, and what are their names?
I only have one now. I'm revealing that one of my twins just passed away. But I've had two goats pretty much at every time, but because they like being in a herd, I like being with their friends. But I had twins, and then they live in a herd that's down the road because the lady, she looks after my goats for me when I'm away. And then one of them unexpectedly died, probably a snake bite or something. But now I've only got one. But his name's Cream, but his sister was Strawberry and Cream. Yeah, he's beautiful. He's so beautiful.
So, Emma, what advice would you give to teens or to people that want to get into your career? What advice would you give them to lead them into that path?
I mean, it's really about being open-minded and trying everything because you really do not know where things are going to end up. And again, if you're really passionate about something, it will come back around or you'll make it come back around. And so it's just, yeah, I think flexibility and resilience is a huge thing for anyone, not just as a teen, but as a teen, sometimes you get a little bit stuck in your vision, but you need to go with the flow and don't worry, things will all work out.
Yeah. Yeah. If you could go back and talk to your little Memma self or your little Emma self, what would you tell her?
That I'd be like, just calm down, pipe down, Chachi. It'll be fine. Just relax, go with the flow. Everything will be fine. You know, in children's entertainment, it's not, I'm not a surgeon. Do you know what I mean? It's not, it's about having fun and being joyful. And so it'll happen. Relax. It's fine.
Were you not relaxed about it? Were you
worried?
I
was just such a go-getter and just so determined, to be a ballet dancer. But it's all good. Like, it's fine. I found my real passion through the challenges, and that always happens.
Would little you be really shocked?
Yeah, they'd be like, happy? What do you mean?
Yeah.
They were very happy, yeah. But I wouldn't have known that I was going to be here at all. Yeah. I know it doesn't, I think from the outside, it's like, oh no, but you are doing what you said you would do. But it's not. When I was young, I was like, I am a ballerina. I'm obviously not a ballerina.
I have
exactly, like I have elements of it and it is adjacent, but it's not what my original dream was.
Yeah.
Okay, for a bit of fun, right? So you've got 17-year-old Emma. She's had her accident. You do get the time machine. You get to go back and sit and tell her and describe your now life. How would you do it?
Again, I'd be like, Emma, relax. It's going to be a super fun time. It's way more adventurous than you thought. You get to be with children, families. You're hoping to make people's day, and you're going to love it.
I love that. Amazing. I love that. Emma, thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of the podcast. And there's so much in this story about how you are here to give people love and light. And you've certainly done that for us by agreeing to be on the podcast. We were thrilled. We were high-fiving and screaming and we just couldn't believe it. So thank you so much.
It's nice to see you both again. Twice in 6 months is amazing. I don't even see my friends, which is good. So this is lovely. I really hope I get to see you guys next time we're up north.
Well, thank you for making our dreams come true and many others, and we hope your dreams come true too. I know you seem to be living it, but whatever else is in your heart, we hope it happens for you.
And for you both, and thank you. And I love the pink situation. Thank you.
We'll say goodbye to you, and thank you so much, Emma.
See you guys soon.
Bye, Emma. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, and I'll see you in the Gold Coast soon.
Yes.
We'll be front row with our skirts.
Yes.
And glitter. We are wearing glittery shoes.
Sparkles, skirts, twirling, ribbons, everything.
We'll get you all paid.
You know you've set us a challenge and we're going to go buy some shoes and bedazzle the hell out of them.
I'm excited about it.
Okay.
You've got plenty of time.
Okay.
Bye, darling.
Bye.